What's good, YouTube, man? It's your boy Trayvon, back with another video. And today we watching the quote of Elon Musk, a billionaire disaster. This nigga Elon Musk, don't Elon Musk on Twitter now? Oh, he on Twitter.
Are you sincerely trying to save the world?
Well, that nigga on Twitter and Tesla.
I'm trying to do good things, yeah. I mean, saving the world is not I mean...
But you're trying to do good things and you're a billionaire. That seems a little bit like either superhero or supervillain. You have to choose one.
Sip on mezcal, I like tequila, damn this shit tasty. Yeah, you know I made about $1 million off a pink beanie. I feel like my life is a movie, damn it's too easy. Can't catch me, I'm jumping the borders, hit the embassy, it's bag or die. 7 gold chains on me, call me Slick Rick. Just made an album, 7 days, that's quick. Boobies going up and down, she's fit. Hold up, wait, rewind that shit. Got uncut gems, Adam Sandler.
Stan culture terrifies me. Going so far as to steal your favorite streamer's water bottle at a convention, or getting a tattoo of a YouTuber's single strand of hair is alarming and should probably be studied.
This girl tattooed Drake on her forehead. It was love. I mean, it's crazy. It's surreal. I don't even want to look at it anymore because it's super surreal, you know? Yeah.
Celebrity worship, though, is far from a new concept. And truthfully, in small doses, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. To a certain extent, everyone looks up to and draws inspiration from somebody. But an entire subset of the population exalting powerful oligarchs and hailing those at the very top of the societal totem pole as saviors of humanity is what starts to make me a little uneasy, personally.
I ain't never get on this side of the internet or the world or whatever.
Maybe that makes me crazy, but in my mind, no one else encapsulates this quite better than perhaps the most talked about guy on the planet right now. A tech mogul and multi-billionaire CEO who gained a particularly staunch fan base with his frequent use of Twitter, depicting himself as a reputable genius with big ideas for the future, and revolutionizing the automobile industry with the first ever exploding cars. Making headlines most recently for his acquisition of the biggest mass communication site on the face of the internet. While some say he's the very elitist oligarch his fans claim to despise, others continue to insist he's not like the other girls being billionaires. He works for us, the people, vowing to spring humanity forward to explore new frontiers outside of our planetary boundaries. Right? But how honest is this image he wants us to buy into? That's what I'm here to find out today, as we peel back the curtain behind the most beloved savior of Earth, Elon Musk.
Ladies and gentlemen. Well, he on, man. You don't know if he on, know if he on.
Elon Reeve Musk was born on June 28, 1971 in a capital city of South Africa by the name of Pretoria. Brought up alongside 2 younger siblings by his mother May, a Canadian-born model and dietitian, and his incestuous father Errol, a South African electromechanical engineer, pilot, sailor, consultant, and property developer, meaning it goes without saying that Elon was born into a life of extravagant wealth. A fortune that only grew larger when his father's stumbled upon a golden opportunity to sell the family's private jet to some Italians in exchange for half a Zambian emerald mine, giving the family access to all the emeralds they could have ever wanted. Gems which, interestingly enough, Errol claims to have sold himself, hiring a cutter in Johannesburg
Jackpot.
and pawning them off along his trips as an engineer across the globe. Though that all depends on who you ask. While Elon was once happy to discuss the mine in 2014, he's since denied it ever existing. Not sure what happened there. Maybe he
This is going to sound slightly crazy, but my father also had to share. Nigga just lied, so you saying your life
just a bit forgetful. Errol, though, detailed the scale of the family's luxury in a 2018 interview with Business Insider, stating, "We had so much money at times we couldn't even close our safe. With one person holding the money in place, another would slam the door. And then there'd still be all these notes sticking out and we'd sort of pull them out and put them in our pockets." Being driven to school in a convertible Rolls Royce, the Musk children had thoroughbred horses to ride and motorbikes at the age of 14, as Errol went on to describe in another interview. An illustrious lifestyle that not everybody in apartheid South Africa could relate to say the least. See, at the time, Elon belonged to a rich minority who was granted better education and healthcare opportunities, giving him a significant head start compared to the less advantaged groups during apartheid. Not everybody's dad owned a stake in a Zambian emerald mine, is what I'm trying to say. Having an influential family with the relevant resources and connections to get ahead is what
I ain't gonna lie, I thought Elon Musk was like poor growing up. He got out the mud type shit. Man, Elon Musk, nigga, you was, let me be quiet.
ultimately allowed
I fuck with Elon. Elon, man, he don't know anything.
allowed him to move to Canada during his teen years. The truth was, his parents had been divorced since 1980, and living with his dad was a decision he ultimately came to regret, as the two had more than a turbulent relationship. A cushy upbringing didn't mean one free of familial trauma.
Very violent. It was not a happy childhood. My father has serious issues.
Elon describing his now estranged father as a terrible human being, emotionally abusing his children their entire lives, which isn't too surprising when you consider he's admitted to having a child with his stepdaughter 40 years his junior, despite raising her since the age of 4. So, after obtaining a Canadian visa through his mother, Elon would then move to the US, attending the University of Pennsylvania and graduating with a Bachelor of Arts degree in physics and a Bachelor of Science in economics by the mid-90s, when he then moved to San Diego with plans to obtain a PhD at Stanford. Though Elon quickly changed course as he watched the company Netscape go public with a valuation of about $3 billion. Being a fan of computers and sci-fi his entire life, Elon was enamored with the business potential of the consumer internet, dropping out of Stanford after just 2 days and chasing the money during the dot-com boom, the most convenient timing imaginable for a guy like Elon to be enveloped in Silicon Valley. After hearing a botched pitch from a Yellow Pages representative during his time as an intern, Elon recognized the need for searchable directories online and conferred with his brother / good friend of another famous billionaire whose name escapes me, Kimball, to do just that. After being primarily funded by Errol, Elon and Kimball's Zip2 sought to provide and license online city guide software to newspapers. And if that sounds boring, it is. I'm not gonna lie, it's boring. And frankly, it's an idea so basic, it would have been invented by somebody else had Elon not been at the right place at the right time. But what I find funny is that throughout its early stages, Elon would impress potential investors by building a giant fake casing around a smaller computer to make it seem like Zip2 was some kind of massive supercomputer when it wasn't, kicking off a disturbing pattern of lying to investors that seemed to follow Elon throughout his entire career, but we'll get into all that later. See, Elon and Cowboy Kimball finally scored their first investment from a venture capital firm for $3 million, on the one condition that Elon step aside as CEO and allow a more seasoned
You gotta give it to Elon. Nigga, a businessman though, you know what I'm saying?
tech executive to take his place. While Elon has always pushed to keep himself in the spotlight, Zip2 needed the money, so he agreed. It was at this point that newer, more skilled programmers were hired and tasked with rewriting a huge bulk of Elon's code, as it was evident his skills were self-taught, which is a mild way of putting it when you consider how much needed to be fixed. Like, I'm a YouTuber who doesn't know anything about coding, but because his approach apparently didn't include chunking, he created what's known as a hairball, or a tangled mess of code that's nearly impossible to unravel if anything goes wrong. So hey, maybe coding wasn't his strong suit, but that's okay because neither was managing, apparently. With one former vice president alleging Elon would get really angry if the entire company wasn't still at their desks working past 9 o'clock at night, which I find hard to believe, personally. Elon working his employees to the point of exhaustion exhaustion has never been documented at any point throughout his career. But after eventually organizing a coup to reinstate himself as CEO, Elon became
Do Elon own Amazon? Or is that the other nigga?
a millionaire when Zip2 sold to Compaq in 1999, with his 7% share of the company scoring him a $22 million payday. Money that he would then sink into an uninsured $1 million car he later totaled, not before inviting CNN over to film the equivalent of a really expensive unboxing video.
I'd like to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. That'd be cool.
He wanted to make himself famous. In fact, it's possible he cared more about his image than just about anything else. You'll see in a minute that the drive behind all of Elon's business ventures relied more on Elon making himself a cult of personality than actually improving the world in direct, tangible ways, as we see in the story of X.com, which, despite its name, wasn't a porn site.
So this is an ATM. What we're going to do is transform the traditional banking industry.
Opera GX is my preferred browser. I used to use Chrome and then I finally opened my third eye. Chrome just is a giant resource hog. It's not worth it and it tanks performance.
I do not fit the
He opened his third eye. Nigga, what?
picture of a banker. Raising $50 million is a matter of making a series of phone calls.
This is where Elon's story gets even more convoluted and dishonest. When going through his list of accomplishments, many incorrectly credit Elon for founding PayPal, when in fact, he didn't. His company X.com merged with another company that had already created and been using PayPal for up to a year prior. While he promised to revolutionize online banking by throwing $12 million at X.com, all he actually managed to do was talk up a big game and make up a bunch of false promises about an online banking software in order to woo investors. The truth was, their technology was faulty at best, with one glaring flaw even allowing users to transfer money from any account in the nation's banking system using only an account number. Employees felt as though Elon had promised the moon and the stars, but had in return delivered nothing close to it. So they were leaving in droves along with one of the co-founders. Struggling to support itself, X.com merged with a competing payment company called Confinity, owned by fellow billionaire and enjoyer of young people's blood, Peter Thiel.
What?
Owned by fellow billionaire and enjoyer of young people's blood, Peter Thiel.
He definitely sold.
He and Confinity received widespread press coverage in 1999 with the launch of PayPal. But despite misconceptions, PayPal was ultimately a product of Confinity, only adopting the name X.com because it was thought to have more marketability than the names Confinity or even PayPal, which was abandoned when early consumers thought it was a porn thing, so they went with PayPal. And it didn't help that Elon was suspected by executive Roelof Botha of not disclosing important financial details to the board, and with the company losing so much money under Elon, more and more people there were questioning his decision making. So they organized a coup to overthrow him as CEO and replace him with Bloodman Thiel. It worked, and Elon was removed from his executive position at PayPal while on his way to Australia, cutting his honeymoon a little short. As for PayPal, both of these nuts justified the decision by claiming it would have killed the company if Elon stayed on as CEO for 6 more months. Though Elon still kept his stake in PayPal and made about $180 million when it sold to eBay in 2002. He cashed out, but I cannot emphasize enough how little he actually had to do with making the company a success. And
So basically, he just finessed that shit.
he certainly wasn't a founder despite going to extreme lengths to make you think he was. But at least Elon only did this once, right? Right?
He wasn't the founder in the sense of he wasn't, we started it.
I'm not sure why he has to also say that he was a founder when he wasn't. I don't understand that.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
Before we go any further, let me clear something else up. Elon is not the founder of Tesla.
This nigga had me fooled.
Despite this lie being spewed casually across the internet over and over, the company's real founders go by the names of Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, who formally incorporated Tesla Motors in July 2003. It wasn't until February of 2004 that Elon Musk even came into the picture, becoming the largest shareholder with an investment of $6.5 million. Becoming chairman of the board, but until he became CEO, he wasn't really a big part of the company. Even now, some of the only patents to his name have to do with door designs and the charging mechanism that makes Tesla chargers exclusive to Tesla.
His patent is just on the connecting point, and not the cable or really the tech, just the shape and locking mechanism of the charging port. Seems like it might have to do with the fact that you can't charge any electric vehicle at a Tesla station, just Tesla cars. And one of the things Musk definitely did early
That's hard though. That's like a big part of it.
in Tesla production is push for as many charging stations as they could make, meaning that one of the reasons their cars sell so much is because their charging stations account for about 40% of the stations in the US.
Which, gee, sure sounds like a way to squeeze more affordable electric car companies out of the market, but what do I know? Elon at first clashing with Tesla founders after they failed to mention his name in an interview with the New York Times, because why would they? He wasn't CEO. Threatening to pull out of the company though if they didn't call back and issue a correction. Elon's pettiness was on full display. Elon was obsessed with being the face of it all. Probably what drove him to out Eberhard from the company in 2007, illegally denying his severance, resulting in a storm of lawsuits and counter lawsuits alike, as Eberhard slammed Elon for attempting to rewrite history and gave himself the title of founder. A settlement was eventually reached outside.
Nigga, Elon had me. I ain't gonna lie, he had me fooled 35 minutes ago. I thought Elon was the owner.
The court, but it's hard to imagine Eberhard doesn't hold any resentment towards the man who kicked him out of his own company.
Can you describe the moment that you realized you could no longer be part of Tesla?
No.
Is there anything you can say about why you left?
I was voted off the island, and in a rather rude way.
He took it.
And it wound up with some lawsuits and some settlements, and it's history now. Yeah, so I can't say a lot about it.
Yeah. Going to show that the reality of who Elon Musk is doesn't exactly reflect the big chungus epic wholesome 1000 Reddit image he tries to put forward. At the core, he's still just a soulless businessman. And I promise no amount of Dogecoin is ever gonna change that. So let's focus on ways you can actually get money with the help of today's sponsor, Upside. Upside is an app that allows you to earn cash back on essential purchases you'd already be making. It just puts money back in your pocket as you shop normally. Just choose from a range of offers near you to get the most value on gas.
In this runoff election, our rights are on the ballot. Herschel Walker wants to ban abortion nationwide.
Conditions.
We're hearing from a former Tesla employee who sued and won a discrimination lawsuit against the automaker. ABC News reporter Rebecca Jarvis has more on the racial abuse he endured.
On April 16th, 2018, a nonprofit investigative journalism site by the name of Reveal News published the results of an investigation that discovered a rampant slew of employee injuries at Tesla's Fremont, California factory that had gone unreported after the company claimed to have made the factory safer than it used to be. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but not reporting a guy's inhalation injuries from breathing in toxic glue doesn't mean it didn't happen. In fact, failing to log serious injuries on government-mandated reports to make your company look safer than it actually is illegal. But right as this investigation was made public, Elon spouted off on Twitter. The problem is journos are under constant pressure to get max clicks and to earn advertising dollars or get fired. After journalist Jessica Huseman reminded him that Reveal News was a nonprofit that doesn't have advertisers, Elon suggested they're all rich kids in Berkeley who took their political science prof too seriously. Tesla going on to smear Reveal News as an extremist organization working directly with union supporters to create a calculated disinformation campaign, even though Reveal was just the messenger, basing the report on medical documents, OSHA records, 911 calls, and Tesla's own injury logs, speaking with 5 former members of the Tesla safety team, along with dozens of other former and current employees. Some were union, but others weren't. Employees who described a chaotic factory floor where speed trumped safety. It's been reported that workers were crushed by forklifts, burned in electrical fires, sprayed with molten metal, and sliced by machinery named after X-Men characters. And that's just according to the ones they reported, which amounted to about 722 total injuries in 1 year, or roughly 2 a day. Even over a year later, Tesla still had 3 times as many OSHA violations as the 10 largest US plants combined, which may have had something to do with the lack of yellow hazard marks around the factory. As the Reveal article alleges, concerned about bone-crunching collisions and the lack of clearly marked pedestrian lanes at the plant, the General Assembly Line's then lead safety professional went to her boss, who she said told her Elon does not like the color yellow, along with him also supposedly personally disliking the sound of forklifts backing up. Pretty insane claims Elon has since denied in the same breath as
I often say, Elon, you ain't even finna be in the factory. You finna be at home eating grapes.
threatening to take away stock options from union workers, which landed him in court. If someone said Elon doesn't like something, you were concerned because you could lose your job, stated the former environmental compliance manager. So not only have employees blamed the unprecedented number of injuries on Elon's supposed relaxed approach to safety, but Tesla didn't even report all of it. When injuries were brought to light on a public scale, however, Elon promised to personally meet with all the injured employees and even visit the floor of the Tesla factory to do their jobs for them, which would have been cool if he had ever actually done it. And this was all before making his employees return to work at the height of COVID, resulting in an outbreak, defying public health orders and causing 450 plus cases at his own factory in 2021 is far from his initial prediction that there'd be 0 new cases of COVID by April 2020. And while it's
I thought this nigga's evil, low key, bro. How y'all feel about this nigga, chat?
worth noting, Tesla isn't the only car manufacturer known for this kind of unethical activity. It's also important to keep in mind, we don't worship other tech or car CEOs as such brilliant architects of the future who will bring humanity to the next step by installing chips in our brains or whatever.
In a lot of ways, it's kind of like a Fitbit in your skull with tiny wires. If they're inserted very carefully, so that the robot actually images the brain and makes sure to avoid any veins or arteries, so that the electrodes can be inserted with no noticeable damage. You sort of think like if you stab something with a wire, surely it will bleed, but actually at a really small scale, it does not.
Most visionaries, though, don't end up sued by the state of California over reports of, quote, rampant racism that have been around for years. According to a 39-page report from 2022, black employees were not only denied promotions and given harsher punishments than others, but black workers and black workers only were forced to scrub the floor on their hands and knees. Tesla's response to these claims has been both poor and dismissive, shoving the racism allegations to the side to instead brag about how much they've done for sustainability and clean energy, which is pretty fucking ironic considering how much money they pull in from selling their carbon credits.
But Tesla still isn't profitable. Their stated goal is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. But Tesla's actual strategy is exploiting well-meaning government climate programs. Look at carbon credits. Government permits to emit a certain quantity of greenhouse gases. Companies earn carbon credits for reducing emissions and have to spend them when they emit too much. Tesla earns a lot, then sells them to other companies, erasing whatever progress Tesla made. The boost from selling carbon credits led to some of the only profitable quarters Tesla had ever had.
So they're basically monetizing pollution. Pollution that Elon has most definitely contributed to with his rocket-related vanity projects. When he can even get them approved for launch, that is. One being denied in 2020 after the FAA cited a tweet from Musk himself where he predicts a 1 in 3 chance of success. Get this, he launched anyway, and the rocket blew up. I mean, what are we even doing at this point? But who cares? Tesla and SpaceX are thriving. Tesla's value being so high, in fact, that it can never fail, I think. Actually, it's been reported as one of the most overvalued companies in the world because it's seen as a tech company, not a car company. It's why they've got such a lead on Toyota, for example, despite having to recall so much of their inventory. But at least Elon has some great ideas on how to revolutionize the way we get around.
Traffic is soul destroying. It's like acid on the soul. It's horrible. This is, I think, finally, there's something that I think could solve the goddamn traffic problem.
After finding himself stuck in traffic,
This nigga, you can tell he lying.
one day in 2016, Elon envisioned a bright future where people could travel in a less congested environment, vowing to instill a safe, earthquake-proof underground network of tunnels to help you get from point A to point B in reduced time. And if you're thinking, hey, that sounds a lot like a subway, you're right, except these are only for Teslas and can only take on a fraction of the people a subway can carry. Described as a dangerous and uncomfortable death trap by people that have actually used it.
Oh my, there's a traffic jam.
Oh, you know what? When it's busy with new people constantly, it's not too bad. But when it's slow and you're by yourself, it kind of gets a little boring sometimes.
So Elon somehow managed to come up with a less efficient, more costly version of something that already exists and works perfectly fine. In fact, one would think,
But it's not a subway in every city though. You know what I'm saying?
I think the more responsible thing to do for society would be to put more money into public transportation rather than create your own tunnel system from scratch that would require time, resources, and billions of dollars to complete. There's a reason we only have one of these things coming out of a Las Vegas convention center and not the elaborate network Elon once promised. But if I had $1 for all the times Elon failed to go through on a promise, I'd be able to buy Twitter. Making such absurd predictions that don't end up happening, between Tesla battery swapping to saying there will be 1 million robo-taxis on the road by 2020, promising a self-driving Model 3, connecting our brains to computers, and saying he's gonna put people on Mars in the next 10 years, which was 10 years ago. See, setting lofty, unachievable goals for the future is a big part of Elon's business strategy. Sometimes it works out and he finds the funding he's looking for, which the business strategy.
He got like truck driver, like Tesla.
Sometimes it works out and he finds the funding he's looking for, which isn't hard to do. But other times, Elon lying on such a public scale has gotten him sued by the SEC when he knowingly lied about taking Tesla private at $420 while he had no plans of actually doing so. Which all goes to suggest that maybe we should approach this guy's ventures with a strong degree of caution and skepticism. Because at the end of the day, does Elon care more about helping the world or helping his image? Positing himself as the cool guy billionaire with cameos on Young Sheldon and The Simpsons only contributes to the latter. Same with going to the Met Gala and hosting what is by far one of the worst episodes of SNL I have ever seen. Maybe if he wanted to be perceived more favorably and make real, substantial societal change in the process, he'd be making more consistent donations, like when he donated $1 million to trees on one occasion, which is $166 million less than what he tried to sue a whistleblower for, and $43,999 million less than what he spent on the worst app on your phone.
This morning, billionaires debating the direction of the site that has an outsized impact on the spread of information. Elon Musk tweeting overnight, Twitter needs to become by far the most accurate source of information about the world. Former owner Jack Dorsey replying, accurate to who?
Elon Musk completed his takeover of Twitter in a $44 billion deal on October 23, 2022, cleaning house by immediately firing the CEO, CFO, and head of legal policy the following day, with rumors that he was about to fire 75% of Twitter's total employees, an aggressive decision he backtracked before settling on about 50%, which still amounted to over 3,700 jobs being taken away from departments including engineering and content moderation. Some employees in Ireland and Britain staying up late at night to learn about the fate of their careers at 3 in the morning. According to the New York Times, the cuts were so haphazard that at one late night meeting about the Twitter Blue subscription product, at least one worker was locked out of the company's systems during the call. The layoffs were so sudden and devastating, they prompted Twitter founder Jack Dorsey to take personal accountability for growing the company too quickly and letting it reach this point. A point where the FTC is now tracking the developments at Twitter with, quote, deep concern.
FTC.
After key members of the security team left en masse as the company goes up in flames. With each passing day, it's becoming more apparent that Elon may be a little too in over his head, saying things about the app only to have it be corrected by the former CEO, in over his head, saying things about the app only to have it be corrected by the former CEO, the website itself, or employees who have been with Twitter way longer than he has, going so far as to publicly fire an engineer who didn't do anything but offer a correction in a particularly public throwdown that ended with Elon using the information the guy gave him. As one user summarized the situation, Musk declares something he knows nothing about, is corrected by an employee who explains the problem, then fires that employee and presents their ideas as his own, which, as we've covered here today, is quite literally the story of his entire career. But Elon seems to be less concerned about the internal problems that could cost the company billions and more focused on fixing the problems that weren't actually there, lifting an indefinite work from home order to assure employees work 40 hours a week in person as he begins to roll out a number of asinine changes. Some of the changes having to do with content moderation and adding long-form text attachments to tweets, which is something that already exists. Why is everyone in the replies pretending that we don't already have this? Twit longer is a thing. This isn't new. The biggest change that you've probably already seen has to do with verification. Twitter, along with basically every social media site, uses a small check mark to indicate that celebrities, journalists, politicians are all the real public figures they say they are, so that people aren't fooled by impersonators. It's a pretty standard, straightforward method that has always worked. But because Elon is obsessed with making dumb and counterproductive changes that make people pay attention to him, he's decided to change how we view verification, coming up with a plan to charge users $8 for a check mark. But not just for celebrities, for anyone, floating the idea that paying for a subscription is the only way to make more people see your tweets.
Prioritize Twitter search, replies, mentions, by verified users first. Yeah, this is very, if you're payment verified with blue checkmark, then you're prioritized and hateful conduct pays. But if somebody risks losing even $8, the net effect will be over time that the verified users will pretty much always be at the top of comments and so.
Bro, this nigga don't know what the fuck he be talking about. This nigga be talking verified users, bar, Tesla.
And you won't really see, you'll have to scroll far to see the unverified users, which will be the bots and trolls and whatnot.
Incentivizing people to pay for the app by burying unverified accounts under anyone who coughs up $8 and gets a fake little participation trophy. With reports that those who do not pay for Twitter Blue will be relegated to a separate page on the site entirely. So just like his carbon credit scheme, Elon has found a way to monetize free speech rather than facilitate it. Putting it behind a paywall only assures the real avid dick riders are the ones who get their voices heard. That and anyone anyone who pays $8 to impersonate celebrities and tweet things that surely Elon would find hilarious now that comedy is legal again. The one funny thing Elon's ever done, and it was by accident. But this sudden push for subscription-based content makes more sense when we see it in a wider context, as a possible attempt to recoup the losses he incurred by failing to get out of his binding obligation to buy Twitter, at least as stated by a former employee, driving home the point that these new payment options are less a demonstration of Elon's genius marketing wit and more like a desperate scramble to keep the company from going bankrupt. Elon's takeover prompting such a mass exodus of huge advertisers, i.e. where Twitter gets 90% of their revenue from, probably having to do with the number of hate-filled tweets increasing by 5 times and the new CEO of the company himself tweeting ridiculous conspiracy theories immediately following the acquisition. Yeah, it's no surprise that brands don't want to be associated with that. No matter how much Elon threatens to thermonuclear name and shame them in front of 110 million people, which probably won't do much to curb the billions of dollars Elon projects Twitter to lose over the next year, telling employees that bankruptcy isn't out of the question. Of course, the fact he even spent $44 billion at all, more than twice of what Twitter was worth, kinda already demonstrates that being a billionaire, it doesn't always equate to being smart at business. Now, I'm personally not in the biggest hurry to upload my bank info to an app that just lost a chunk of its cybersecurity team, but I hope for Elon's sake that enough people pay for his dinky little check mark to keep the lights on. But at least in the meantime, he did manage to make Twitter have less ads than this video, so I'll give him that.
PayPal, SolarCity, Tesla, SpaceX, they're so spectacularly different. They're such ambitious projects at scale. How on earth has one person been able to innovate in this way? What is it about you?
Despite everything we've talked about, Elon Musk is still one of the most liked and respected people on the planet. His quirky, casual internet status setting him aside from the group of other elitists who don't have a fraction of the support Elon both enjoys and exploits. His army of unrelenting fans is like a weapon he uses against the people who slightly criticize him, like the time he baselessly accused a journalist of taking bribes for Tesla short sellers, or at the time he called a British diver leading the charge to save a group of boys trapped in a cave pedo guy, paying to find dirt on the man when all he did was refuse to accept Elon's submarines he didn't think could work. Maybe I'm in the minority on this, but threatening to sue a Tesla whistleblower for $160 million is far from preserving free speech. So is attempting to bribe a 17-year-old kid with a Tesla for operating a Twitter account publicly tracking all of your flights, or at the time he allegedly offered a flight attendant a horse after he supposedly exposed himself to her during a massage. Incidents that go completely disregarded or forgotten by his obsessed zealots who soy face at the mere mention of Elon on Rick and Morty or Iron Man or Star Trek. Elon will always be able to preserve his relatable image by annoyingly buying stankmemes.com and posting a stock meme, or posting a Harambe rap song to SoundCloud in 2019, or charging $69,420 for a car, or manipulating the market with a stupid shitcoin. See, Elon's cult following comes from the delusional assertion that despite being the richest man alive, he's just like us. He's a guy you'd smoke a joint with, using his goofy antics to distract from who he truly is at his core. A greedy, rich oligarch who evidently doesn't care much about the safety and livelihoods of the people he employs, or even whether or not the people on the first voyages to Mars live or die for that matter. What makes you think this guy would ever care about you?
Y'all, you know what I'm saying? Fuck Elon Musk. You know what I'm saying? If I catch Elon Musk slipping his job, you know what I'm saying? I fuck with Elon though, but Elon, I fuck with you. But if I catch you slipping his job, you know what I'm saying?